Kia ora whānau, nau mai hara mai ki te Rangatahi Keeda podcast. Again, we're here with some awesome guests. I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but quickly, I'm Joran. I'm going to throw it to my brother Dawson to introduce himself. Kia ora, Dos.
Kia ora, bro. Tēnā koe i te whānau. I'm very excited about today's podcast and our two special guests. But I'll let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Michael. Tēnā koe, Michael.
Tēnā koe, tāne, tēnā tātou katoa, tāne mā. Massive to be here. I'm really looking forward to just kind of digging into this kōrero, and, you know, amongst brothers that are all open-hearted, open-minded, and I really want to just see where the journey goes, where the kōrero goes. And if I catch a vibe, well, then I'm going to ride the train.
Kia ora. And tēnā koe, Keeda.
Kia ora, kia ora. My name's Keeda Walters. Grew up all around New Zealand. Let's just leave it there. And yeah, excited to see where this kōrero goes.
Sure, brother.
Yeah, too much. Yeah, again, brothers, you know, Dawson and I were really keen to have this podcast episode with you guys, and you know, I want to get into it real quick, straight away. You know, poetry, spoken word poetry. What is it, bro? What does it look like to you guys? And how can Rangatahi, you know, get in this lane? Because I mean, I watch stuff on YouTube all the time and I'm super inspired, and then I read Michael's posts and I get a bit teary sometimes because it's touches the soul. So if you can, brothers, man, just hit us with it, like, you know, your thoughts, your whakaaro on what it is, and perhaps what it's done for you too. Sure.
Yep. Well, I guess I'll go first. So poetry, slam poetry, it's defined in a whole number of genres. So when you look at it, people see poetry as just a form of expression through speaking, but there's many different ways that poetry can actually be interpreted. So like music is definitely poetry because it's depicting a story. It's being able to tell a story through words that you've come up with yourself that mean so much to you, and it's being able to kind of draw the listener in. So like when I look at my profession, which is hip hop, you know, rap, I'm a big hip hop artist. When I was in college, growing up, coming through college, I would try and figure out what my passion was. So I was a kid that didn't really know what I wanted to do going through college. And for ages, the teachers would always come up to me and ask me what sort of plan I had coming out of college. And I didn't have a plan. But I knew that I had a hobby, but my hobby was music. Back then, music was looked as a platform that if you didn't have the right people around you, then you weren't going to make it, because we didn't, like, social media was the craze, but it wasn't as booming as what it is now. You know, you have a look at like Instagram, right, and how TikTok is perceived, and how people can get like hundreds and thousands, if not millions of views just from making like simple 20-second videos. So social media wasn't as booming as what it was. It was just coming into its own. So we didn't really have a platform to express music. But I knew that music was my sort of thing. And I watched a video, slam poetry is the first time I was ever introduced to it. And the video was called Knock Knock. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but that video, when we had watched it, it was our performing arts teacher out of all people that had gotten us to sit down and watch it. And he was our substitute teacher for our music class. So he got us to sit down. We all watched the videos, like 3-4 minutes. And at the end of the video, he asked us to write our own slam poetry. And we could do it in music form, or we could do it in straight poetry form. I decided to write a little something I really couldn't remember right now. It was so long ago. But that was my introduction to see that poetry is just like music, same sort of kaupapa, same sort of content and lyrics, but it's depicted in a different way, but it's still an art form. They're on the same level. And yeah, I don't know, there's just something beautiful about poetry when it's done right. like just to hear how people like to talk about their struggles, or they talk about things that are afflicting them, but they interpret it into their own way. And just the delivery, just seeing how people deliver things, how they'll hold their breath on certain things, or how they emphasize or accentuate certain words to get their point across. I used a lot of that stuff from poetry and incorporated it into my music. And I started to notice that it made like a lot more of an impact in my music through poetry. So to combine the two, poetry is music, music is poetry.
Hey, beautiful, bro.
Kōrero, Keeda. I couldn't agree more. And just building off, just to jump on the train of the Bros vibe. And I'm also really aware of my crack up resting Zoom face, so I apologize. I actually am loving the kōrero, but I don't know why my lips turned downwards on the on the Zoom. I got a resting Zoom face, sorry, funny. Hey, but I wanted to answer the question with the art form, if that's cool.
Yeah.
Because poetry to me is so many things very similar to Keeda. But I kind of come back also to Indigenous storytelling, to the modes of Indigenous storytelling, the necessity of Indigenous storytelling, the raising up of our whakaaro Māori. But I do that. The reason why I love poetry is because I'm an urbanized Māori, so in Te Ao Māori, I'm still a baby, I'm still morphing, I'm still transforming, but poetry allows me to bridge to concepts and ideologies that are Māori, that are universal, that are for everybody, because the infinite song that's embedded in all things, and the alchemist, he calls it the soul of the universe. Poetry allows me to access that language, and I just wanted to share that through a poem right now, if that's cool.
Right.
Maybe it'll say it better than me just rambling on, but I do love language. For me, it's always a good time for a good rhyme and punchline, better still when the balance is mixed. Call it an alkaline alchemy of alpha lines so complex they intersect like vectors to achieve equilibrium, and I'm not here to impress anybody or anything, just a message. A message from the most enlightened essence of the darkest of my depression. Now that's a God-given lesson, that even in a lessened state, we can still gravitate towards life's eternal blessing. That is life. That which I have found in words. When resonating with passion, they call out the spirit to action. Countless brothers have found traction on words that I carry that are not my own. And I do love language. I love it so much that I overstayed the hippocampus like Freedom Hippie Campus to re-establish the peace and love language. My peace and love language. This is not drill. This is not a trained skill. This is second nature, mother being the first. I'm a child of the dirt and earth, so I know exactly what this land's worth. Call me William, not Shakespeare, but Wordsworth. Then walk this dirt with me and see if your souls go unimpressed. I'm not here to impress anybody or anything. Just a message from the backstage deities that hold up Pleiades so that you and I can live in all metaphysical metaphors and miracles. And I do love that language. Are we rocking? Poetry to me is all those things. It's life. It's life. It's our attempt of capturing life in word. It's our attempt of artistically expressing whakapapa. It's a way of connecting to other Indigenous cultures from around the world. Poetry in my experience is rongoa, is medicine. It's healing. The words are healing, and they're also not healing if you don't do them right. So I always think that to activate word, particularly in Rangatahi, to activate word in Rangatahi is actually a very special gift, and it's not my gift to them, it's the gift that's constant running through me from the tipula, And they say to me, our tipuna say to us, well, devote yourself to this thing, and then you might be lucky enough to pass that on to the young ones, And so for me, I truly devote myself to this art form because I believe that it is a rongoa and a medicine.
Hold on, my bro.
And it brings us into the live stream of whakapapa. It brings us into the, the before and the after. And there's a role in there for us. And again, I'm only a baby in these concepts, but I love them, eh? They're magic. Te ao Māori concepts are so magic. Whai kōrero, I think about the ati, marae ati, when people are, I think about whai kōrero, I think about, mahi rota rota, I think about all of our artistic, taonga toku ihu, all of our artistic expressions as Māori, and they're just, telling us stories. The story of, let's just get philosophical just because, but they're telling us the story of the rock, the story of the tree, the story of the manu, the story of our whānau that have passed, the story of the stars, etc., etc., etc. When I say we weave into the before and after, well, that includes all those things. Ko taupiri te maunga, ko wakato te awa, ko taupiri te waka, a te mani o poto toku iwi. Those things are real, they're living, they're a part of who we are. And it's poetry that brought me back to that way of thinking. As I said earlier, I grew up as an urbanized Māori, disconnected from all of these things where I find so much life and value now, disconnected from kaupapa and whakaaro Māori. And yeah, it wasn't until, life hit hard, and then I had a moment where I could actually reflect on who I was, what's driving me, who am I, ko waio. And poetry allowed me to explore that, who am I? Richly and meaningfully and purposefully and intentionally explore my internal world. Because the internal world is a storm unless you are doing something with it, eh? So often when I kōrero te rangatahi, when I ride with young men, I always say, we talk about the storm. The mind can only process so much before it needs things to go somewhere. And say you're processing anger and frustration, and it's just cooking away. Eventually it's got to go somewhere. So why not into a page? Yeah. Why not into your pen? Why not into words? And yeah, I'll leave that there. Yeah.
Bro, how do you applause in poetry? Like I've seen you clicking. Is that how we do it? Clicking.
Yeah, bro. Yeah.
Bro.
Yeah. That's what we call them ups. We did a tour a long time ago, the Uplift tour, and we for young people, bringing spoken word poetry to young people around the region, and we wanted it to be an uplifting experience. So we called them ups in the Waikato.
Big ups to both of you, man, for sharing your guys' whakaaro. And I just want to do a quick big ups to Keeda's substitute teacher who came to his class and introduced him to poetry. That's me. It's quite, me and Dawson talk a lot about role models, and sometimes it's people that you least expect. And a substitute teacher came in one day, showed them this poem, and now look, we got Keeda. That's me. Awesome. Bro, you talked about something, Mike, and Keeda touched on it too. It was about you talked about hip hop, we talked about urbanization, and one of the things me and Dawson always push, although we work in the rangatahi space, we work with and alongside young people to empower them and to have positive impacts on them. The gist of it is we don't actually work in the youth industry, or we're not doing youth work. We're actually doing mahi of decolonization, eh? That's pretty much the real mahi that we're trying to do. Everything that our rangatahi are faced with is usually come off the impacts or the effects of that, symptoms of colonization everywhere. It's rife without our communities, especially for Māori and Pacifica. And you talked about rongoa, bro, and I automatically started to think about how little as men that we talk we kōrero, or we express ourselves or express how we feel, even to our own children sometimes. Like you talked about it far more articulate and eloquently than I could ever do. But you know, if there's something that you could share, like even if it's a tips or you know, a little hack that for rangatahi out there who have not yet embarked on that, you know, putting pen to paper yet, what is something that they could do perhaps? Or I don't know, Keeda, is there something that you were inspired from your substitute teacher? Did you just were you hooked in and you just started writing straight away, or what was that like for you, if I've made sense at all?
So in terms of the writing process, it was always there. Like I mentioned before, coming through school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I had like certain interests. So kapahaka was one. Basketball was another thing. I played basketball from primary. So, you know, I wasn't the best, but basketball was the one sport that I kept to. And it was music. Music was my form of expression when I felt like I had no voice. It was my way of being able to convey what I've been going through, even if I hadn't been going through anything. But if I just had something to say, music was my way of being able to express it. What was it? The first time that like I realized that music, specifically hip hop, was my thing, was when they released Look at Me Now, Chris Brown. And they had this little challenge going on at our school, and it was the first one that could recite Busta Rhymes' the whole verse. And so, of course, everybody in our school's going around, and like all the boys and everything. And I was the first one to pick it up and recite it word for word. I had a little cheap, like, like $30, $40 telecom phone back when it was telecom. I had the song downloaded on my phone through Whack Trick, and I sat there and put the phone up to my ear and wrote down what I thought I heard, because I didn't have data back in the day, and my parents were not getting the Wi-Fi, so like you just had to make do with what you had. You know, the 10 free megabytes was enough for me to go and download that song, but I sat there and I listened to it back, you know, over and over again, and I recited as much as I could, wrote it down, did it to everybody at school. They were like, yeah, like you're the first person that's actually been able to recite it word for word. And after that, I was like, actually, this is not too bad. And so through doing all the music classes, and then all my mates started joining, I started to build an interest within them that music might be their thing. And then before you know it, you know, we had like a class full of Pacific Islanders and Māori. They were all doing music specifically so that way they could do hip hop and learn how to, you know, make beats and stuff. But then a lot of stuff was happening personally within myself, like family-wise, you know, just personal issues. So a lot of stuff was happening, but I had no way of being able to convey those issues or talk about them. And so I turned to music. So I started putting it into my music, started writing things, and it was just little things here and there. But over the years, they started to build up, and then it started to convert into my actual music. When I come to the end of college, I still didn't know what to do, had no idea. And so I left college with no plan, didn't know what I was going to do. And then I found out about the MC course at Kōrero, so I decided to sign up. Through that course, that's when, like, I feel like my artistic side really started to shine, because I started to convey a lot of those messages that I was putting aside that I wasn't able to tell anyone about into my music through the like various performances that I did throughout that year and even the year beforehand, and being able to write for a whole bunch of different things. So like within 2014 to 2015, I had written about like my faith. I had written raps about rheumatic fever. When they had the rheumatic fever ads at the time, they were looking for somebody to do a rap, and I ended up writing a rhyme about rheumatic fever in like 2 days. What was it? It was forget rheumatic fever. I take a puff of my reliever. breather. It diminishes the health of those who do receive it. To get it's really easy. Whether you're wheezy, sneezing, freezing, diseases, and fevers, brother, please listen to me, and I will guide you there. Hold your nose and close your cold before I wipe your tear. No crying, yeah. So let me make a simple proposition. Sit and watch and listen. If your throat is itching, get it checked up at the clinic. Make a step to stop, prevent, and take a chance from getting strapped to strap and save a death. You feeling any better yet? Take a chance or take a risk. Be prepared or be a dick, because the next you know, your life is over in a click. You can call them up and they'll be there to help you. It's not as painful as the pain that we would feel without you. I'll tell you, I haven't had a brother going through the pain, so I'm here to save you. Going through the same. Max the name. Word up. That thing right there, you know, and that was about rheumatic fever. I based it off the basis of one of my bros. Actually, he suffered from rheumatic fever and almost, succumbed to it. But he was able to face the odds. So to have that knowledge about what rheumatic fever was and then search it up a little bit more, then I was able to write about that. But moving forward, that's just a small example of the types of things that I was writing about. I was writing about real things that was happening around, my hood, the real things that was happening in my community, and more specifically, through expression and music, I was actually able to connect with my mates and talk to them about things that I would never talk about. So like personal issues, being able to go to them when like I'm feeling down or like something really bad is going on in my family or just anything in general. It got to a point where I started to be able to open up to my mates and my friends and family more, and in return, they reciprocated that same energy. So they gave it back to me, and it helped me as a person develop my confidence levels, whether I was up on stage performing in front of huge crowds or I was sitting in front of a phone, recording my next video to be chucked up on social media. Through talking and expressing myself through music, it gave me the confidence to actually talk to them away from the cameras in person, and it just helped so much. Like I started to learn stuff about myself that I didn't know, and then at the same time I started to learn things about my mates that they would never open up about. And so to give out that energy and to let them know, like this is me at my vulnerable state, but I'm laying it all out on the table for you guys. You guys take it how you like, however you guys want to receive it, and they would receive it and return it tenfold. And so that just developed my confidence so much. It helped me with me writing music. It helped me with just overall socializing skills and being able to like talk to people, walk up to them and have conversations with them and not know them from a bar of soap, but by the end of that conversation, it felt like I'd known them forever. That sort of thing. And so, yeah, music was a godsend, and it was a savior for me at a time where I felt like I had no purpose.
Wow.
And so, yeah, and that's where I am now. That's why I love it when I hear that we have Rangatahi that are wanting to jump up on stage, but are too nervous. They're too nervous to jump up on stage because they're scared, or they've got the, the pre-match jitters is what I like to call it. Because even now, when I get the chance to perform in front of a crowd, I still get those like pre-butterflies, but it's not the type of butterflies that scare me away. It's the type that get me excited, because I know that once that mic's in my hand and those first words come out of my mouth, then all that like fear and all that negative energy that I might have been feeling just goes away, and I know I'm just left with just me, the crowd, and my story. And then by the end of it, I can get off stage and everybody's giving me mad props, and I feel so good about myself. So to be able to help our younger generation achieve the same thing, which I'm so happy that I was able to do last year, and just have like a little bit of a hand in it, joining up with the Waikato Hip Hop Academy, being able to see talent, see the talent that's around our community, because there's a whole crop of talented rangatahi within Waikato district. Now, I grew up in Porirua, where that place is predominantly Pacific Island. It's our Pacific Island community, and they're awesome. So to be able to come home back to Kirikiriroa and find like a lot of talent within our Māori community, because that's one thing that I didn't get to see down in Porirua. So to see a lot of talent within our Māori community and to see kids with a legitimate story and be able to express it the way that they feel comfortable, and to start with them, to see where they started, and then to see where they were on graduation night, to be able to stand up on stage in front of their family, in front of everybody else, people that they don't know, and perform, that's the goal at the end of the day, really. Because if I can inspire somebody and they remember that, hopefully they're able to, pay it forward and pass that same knowledge on down the line. So I don't know, music's just a lovely it's a lovely being. It's the way I see it.
Yeah, bro. I get you. I understand, bro.
Yeah, wow. We just went on a journey there.
Yeah. Awesome.
That's like such a rich take on what it can do for Rangatahi. That's like, that was it in your experience, and I just want to say real quick, I really appreciated that piece about rheumatic fever, because I got stung by rheumatic fever as a young fellow, and it made me pretty crook, man, and it took me places. And actually, I actually started writing when that happened, because I was kind of immobilized, so I was just at home, and I couldn't actually move. The pain of the rheumatic fever was so immense that I couldn't even blink my eyes without being in pain, and I had that for, I kind of went on that high pain level right for almost 2 years until they figured out what was going on, and then it's been a 10-year battle of medication after that. So yeah, really, it's funny, like, just you get amongst your bros, and then a word will pop out, and it's connected to something, and that's what words do. Hey, they connect us to, our kupu Māori. One word is a million years of. So you just threw me back there, Keeda. And I was just wanted to kind of respond to your question as well, Jordan. I think, when it comes to our rangatahi wanting to engage or to write poetry or to, or kind of an inspiring piece around why they would. Just looking back on some of the kōrero that Keeda was saying, and for me, very similar, like it just gave more context to the reality in which I lived. It gave me more scope and a deeper insight into and of the people in it, and that our stories weren't being told, like all valued, and but growing up, I was like, but this is my reality, and where are these stories being told, heard, and valued? Where does the hood life get value? I feel like my hood life with my bros has value. And I took some of that kōrero to a community Waikato event as a keynote speaker, and I talked about the garage kōrero with my bros and how important that is for, say, our young tāne growing up, to have those rich kōrero with our bros. And I feel like, very similar to Keeda, that poetry helped me to instigate those conversations, because when I came into the room, the bros knew that I was doing poetry, and then I was traveling into kind of deeper insights. So the kōrero that you got was that you don't get that superficial kōrero right off the bat. You actually, they arrive at you with quite an intimate kōrero, They come to you with some of their deep things. And I realized to help them to coax out those critical words in their stories that, we're not seeing in the greater lens of society, but only in our kind of small paradigms. And then when those stories do push out, they get mutated into ugly stories, you know? And but that's not how I was seeing it in my reality, in my hood, with my bros and my family and my upbringing. I still saw inspiration, I still saw hope, I still saw value in the words that were formulating in my community. Yeah, so to our young fellas out there, your story is important, you know, and if you're not saying it, then, you know, then somebody else is going to tell your story for you.
Yeah.
You know, so it pays to sharpen the blade. It pays to sharpen the pen. It's good for you to sharpen the pen, because words are something we all use. Everybody uses them in one way. It's art. Poetry is art, but also just sharpening articulation of words. It gives you access to so many spaces in life. I'm not an academic by any means. I tried. I failed. At university, you know, but words have allowed me to enter into some spaces where I never thought that I could. And I'm probably similar for you, Keeda. You know, like being able to do poetry and perform has allowed me to enter into some spaces where people might study all their lives and never get to be in those spaces. I got to travel to Banff and do a residency over there for a month with Indigenous storytellers over there. And that's, you know, this is my last kōrero, sorry brothers, but I flew into America. You know, I flew into Houston, Texas, and as we were flying in, I thought to myself, wow, how did I get here? I've always wanted to come to America. How did I get here? Wow, I opened my mouth.
Yeah. Why do you got to do me like that, mate? You know, listening to you guys speak about your experiences and what poetry means to you, it's made me realize how important art is in terms of like the transformational power that art has. And it's making me think, you know, as an education institute, you know, what does that really mean to us, you know, as Te Wānanga Aotearoa, and do we really understand and know the value that art has? Because you guys have just articulated that to the maximum. Like my cup is full, like to the max. I think we're just going to stop there, guys. Nah. I mean, like, and just to talk about, you know, if you're not going to share your story, then someone else will speak to you. I was fortunate enough to go to Canada, and I listened to one of the rangatira from the Mohawk. He said something really profound to me, and he said, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And I kind of took that out. I was just like, wow, it's so simple. Like, we need to be at the table. We need to be telling our stories. We need to be, you know, sharing our thoughts, our whakaaro, and, you know, what a great way to be able to do that through poetry, through words. And I think, Dawson, bro, did you have a poem prepared that you wanted to share?
No, me, bro. I wish I was creative, bro, but like, just going on what you said, bro, like it's like you said something just before, Michael, like you don't consider yourself an academic, but if I was to sit here and not understand anything that you've done, like you speak very, very, very well, both of you and Keeda, and it comes back to that Western ideology of education, where they put so much value on the degrees and certificates, but that's only one form of education. And if you think back to like our tupuna's traditional understanding of art form, which is toi, we never ever separated it. Toi was all whai kōrero, it was carving, it was moko, it was all included in one. And it's only since the Western version of education come through that they've separated it to make a business model out of it. But there was something that you said a couple of questions ago about the internal storm. And it really sat with me because I really felt like for a while that was me. I had an internal storm. I never knew how to deal with it. You know, because I was like you, bro. I tried university, failed. Tried it twice. You know, so it took me a long, like, you know, people would tell me, "Oh, bro, you're smart enough," but then I couldn't navigate the education system. So what's some coping mechanisms that you guys use to deal with that internal storm. Because if you think about some of the reality some of our rangatahi go through, if that's your everyday reality and it doesn't change, eventually that internal storm starts turning into a negative. So what's some coping mechanisms that you two, through your art form, have able to still be inspired to make that change, still be inspired to share your stories? Like, what's some coping mechanisms that you fellas use through your art form?
I've been working on one particular process at the moment, and working on one at a time is a good thing.
Yeah.
But often we look for inspiration to create, but inspiration is a kind of, it swells and it lulls, it comes and it goes. The key thing that I'm learning now is this idea of practicing craftsmanship and writing when it's hard, and writing when there's no inspiration, and just continuing to practice the craft. And when I focus on craftsmanship, I still get the opportunity to sharpen my pen, so I can cut myself a little bit deeper and allow deeper kōrero and insights to pour out. But I also get, I'm also more often writing the issues that are up here, This thing can only process for so long, and I'm every day I'm taking something out of there and putting it on paper. Every day I'm expressing something that's caught up in here, and I think do the mahi, like practice the craft even when it's hard, and then it does that thing that you're talking about, Dawson. It actually comes back to being a part of our lives. It comes back to being like our tupuna had it. It's actually just in our lives. And I think that's the way art should be. It's not this separate frilly thing. Art is not this separate frilly thing. It's this, it's a part of who we are, Exercise is for the body, like art is for the mind, and both of those things are good for the heart and spirit. So why would you not have the other?
Love it, bro. Love it. Anything to add, Keeda, brother? What's some of your coping mechanisms?
I think he pretty much hit the nail on the head there. But in terms of coping mechanisms for me, because it all kind of makes sense. Like in terms of being able to weather storms, because if I'm to be completely honest with myself, I've been going through a conflicting battle probably the last year or two in terms of my music. So I haven't been as frequent as what I usually am. I mentioned before, I'd done the MC course at Whitireia. But then when I realized that it was just a 1 year thing, it was like, okay, what next? So I started creating this misconception in my head that after I finished at the course, that was going to be it. And I actually had no plan as to what I was going to do coming out of it. I tried my hand at New Zealand School of Tourism for 2 years. That didn't particularly work out. But in amongst all of that, I was still doing my music. But I noticed that over time, I started to regress. And the passion to want to write, or the motivation that I would have, when I was in the MC course, I felt like it started to diminish. And then just over the years, I look at music and it's like, I have this thing of, I know I can write something, but when pen goes to paper, it's blank. So that's the current conflict that I'm having within myself in terms of my music. But when I hear kōrero like that, in terms of being able to push yourself to write when you feel like that there's nothing to write, or being able to express yourself on paper when your mind feels empty, or you just don't have the motivation to do it. Sometimes all it takes is a little spark. I've noticed that just recently I've been getting the itch back. So the mind's been racing, more particularly my process in terms of writing music when I was going full time was to hear the beat first, because for me, the music is what makes the lyrics. I would hear a beat, and as soon as I hear it, I instantly know what sort of thing I want to write about. So that's how I would write my verses. And just recently, I've been hearing some beats that have been, I'm not gonna lie, they've been pretty fire. And so it's been, getting that creative mind going again. And like the whole thing about like filling your jar, slowly but surely I'm adding things to my jar that I feel anytime now, like, I'm gonna be able to start taking from that jar, start putting it into my music and get back to where I was. So just to flip back to answering that question, I think to coping mechanisms to weather the storm, sometimes it's just, for me personally, sometimes it's just okay to just have a break. There might be other things in life that are conflicting with your passion for music that you might have to attend to first before you can come back to it. Sometimes you can use music as a way or means of being able to get through those conflicts in life. But then other times it's okay to have a break. I know of some musicians who have taken, weeks, maybe months or years, and they've stepped away from the craft completely and not thrown out anything. And then when they come back, it's like they never left. Sometimes all you need is just a little break. What do we refer? We refer to it more as writer's block. But it's okay to have a break now and again. But if you know that music is your calling, or that the art form of poetry is your calling, just don't leave it too long. Really, you don't ever want to lose it. Not that you would ever lose it, because once a poet, once a musician, once an artist, always an artist.
Just write down, take a break. It's actually so key, to take a break. Yeah.
Man, that's awesome. I've just been sitting here listening to you guys, just being full on inspired. And I'm one of those people that always is constantly looking for inspiration, and I'm always fascinated by many different people. I don't want to ask a question that Dawson might have for you guys, but I'm wondering if we can get into those quick fire questions, bro, because I really like to get to know who inspires these guys, because they're pretty inspiring people themselves, bro. But on a throw to you, Dos, I wasn't sure if you had one of these questions down, so I was thought, maybe I won't ask.
You can ask it, bro. Ask it. That's fine.
Sorry. Go, bro.
Go. Ask it, bro.
I was just wanting to know, like, in terms of people to go to who are just starting out. Like, I know Keeda mentioned the Knock Knock poem and the poet that wrote that poem. Are there people that you guys could probably suggest, or for young people to go check this person out, because they're really cool, they're really inspiring, even locally? If that would be great if there's some local poets that you guys know of that would be kind of good starting points for young people getting into it, perhaps. Other than yourselves, of course.
At the moment, ki rote te reo Māori, is a poet who goes by the name of Stevie Davies Tana, who has a visual album, spoken word visual album that she's releasing. Her first one was released at the beginning of this week, and then she'll release one poem, I think every week from here out until she's released her whole album. So Stevie Davies Tana, I think, is her whole name. And she's got stuff out at the moment, and I mean, it's getting picked up really quickly. So she puts the poem out, and you'll probably, now that I've said it, you'll probably see it on your news feed, on your social media, just popping up, because it's getting picked up really quickly. And her kōrero was about mana wahine empowerment, and also a lot of our history when it came to colonization in Aotearoa. Yeah, so some really powerful stuff there. And then more local poets, Te Kahu Rolleston.
Mm-hmm.
He's an
Yes.
absolute, legend in the game. And he also, as a rapper and with music, Keeda, and I'm sure, incredible poet, just genius level of craftsmanship and skill. Marina Alafosio is another. She's like, she's also an MC as well. So she, like yourself, Keeda, sound and words are intimately related. Seth, not the ancestor of word is sound. Marina Alafosio, Grace, who I think her handle is Iwish. Grace Taylor. Is also another Polynesian poet from South Auckland Poets Collective back in the day, but now independent writer, producer extraordinaire, telling incredible stories about our Pacific whānau as well, and incredible insights about the va and the water and that connects us, and where is it in the kōrero around the oceans of Ireland, the island of oceans, ocean of islands, kōrero, and how that's flipped. That people of the sea, Pacific kōrero. Maybe I should leave that for the right people. But yeah, so many. Ken Arkine, Kerry Rositsky, both incredible American poets that have spent years in New Zealand now, helping young people to develop the craft of spoken word. Heaps. Personal favorite though for me is Khalil Gibran, the Prophet.
Me? How about you, Keeda?
Damn, he took me back when he took my pick. Te Kahu Rolleston. First time I ever heard about him, I had seen a video of him on Facebook, and I was just drawn. Like his pronunciation and his delivery of his kaupapa. How would you say it's right up in your face, and it's raw. He's got that raw content, and just his delivery with it. It's he emphasizes every point that he makes. At the same time, he keeps it real, but he's not confronting. He's confronting about his issues, but not confronting towards the people that he's delivering it to. And just overall, just the passion. Wasn't he like he was like the slam poetry king? I'll call him the king, but the slam poetry king for a number of years. I was blessed to actually meet him in person when he came to Porirua, and he performed at Pātaka 2015, and that was when I was introduced to Te Kahu. And I didn't know him from a bar circle until he walked into that museum. And when he stood up on stage and he did his spoken word, it resonated with me, because at the same time, the stuff that he was talking about was, everything that our country was going through at the time in terms, and that we're still going through today in terms of, colonization, talking about how our Pacific Island and Māori community are being treated unfairly, just little bits like that. And so I was captivated by his performance and the way that he stood up on stage and held himself, and like even just those dreadlocks, bro, to have a man like that standing up on stage with those dreads, beautiful long dreads blowing in the wind while he's sitting there, almost yelling at you, like Rua Moko and Tawhiri Matia are both going off at the same time, and so that would be the top of the list for me is Te Kahu.
Man, that's awesome. So any rangatahi out there, man, you need to check these people out. I really encourage you, because you guys are making me feel like I need to get a pen and paper out, man. Honestly, this has been awesome.
Get some of your poetry, bro. It's good stuff.
How you going, Dos?
I'm just writing notes, enjoying today's kōrero, bro. Bro, it's just fully inspired. Like you guys have, I think if you think about like our tupuna, like I think one thing I've always said that they were purposeful, you know, and listening to you guys speak about your craft and the passion coming through the kōrero, it shows you guys are not just doing it for likes or for money. You're actually doing it for a purpose, and that purpose is to inspire your whānau and the next generation. And I think it comes through in the kōrero you guys are sharing, that it's not just a clickbait type passion. It's something that you really enjoy, where, you know, all you need is a pad and a pen, and you guys would be able to create something meaningful. And I'm really loving that, bro. Really loving the kōrero and what you guys have shared. I got some quick fire question for you fellas. Just first thing that comes to head, don't think about it too much. So we'll start with Keeda answer first, and then we'll get Michael to answer second. So the first one is if you had any amount of money, bro, what's your go-to kai? What's your favorite kai? Favorite thing to eat? Keeda? No limits on prices, bro. Favorite kai, bro?
I mean, there's a whole array, but I'm just going to have to say hangi.
Hangi.
Yeah.
Brother Mike?
I get the Scotch fillet steak from Smith & Mackenzie's with the side of macaroni and cheese, a red wine, and I get the mussels and the sauce at the beginning, and if I'm feeling extra hungry, I get those dumplings as well.
My man, no water.
Falling out, eh? Falling out.
Something about that food.
We'll come around.
Nice. What's your favorite place to eat in Kirikiri in Hamilton? Where's a go-to place to go to?
Trying to think. I've been there heaps of times too. It's one of the restaurants based at the base. Yeah, bro, don't quote me on the name. I'm kerfuffled right now.
What do you get from that restaurant, bro?
Just steak, bro. A massive steak fan. Just the steak, and whatever else comes with it, I don't really care. As long as I get my steak, then I'm good.
Nice. And you, Michael, what's another restaurant you like to go to?
Yeah, I mean, you know, they're medium at Smith & Mackenzie's is the winner. But if I'm in a rush or if I'm just at home and I need those I need those Uber Eats, then it's usually, and I want the quality Uber Eats, then I try to get the Chili House.
Oh, Chili House is good, bro. Great choice. Might be for the younger generation, but Keeda, Chris Brown or Usher?
Usher. I'm an Usher fan.
Nice. We might have to have a song battle. It was a great song for song. What about you, Mike? Chris Brown or Usher? Who's the better poet?
Oh man, I've got it bad. I think. I just got to remind myself of a song. Yeah, no. Definitely Usher. Yeah, and I mean, I think he comes from a time of it, like, you know, when the story writing, the lyrics were, you know, 90s kind of a little bit more lyrical, maybe, you know, like it's a little bit more beat driven. But I think Chris Brown is an incredible artist as well.
Yeah,
and the dude can rap as well. You know, he's actually a pretty skilled rapper.
Yeah. It's funny. Like sometimes you ask these questions, and people think that when you choose someone else, that you're saying that the other person stink, but that's definitely not the case. You know, they're both great artists in their own right. But I agree with you with that Usher, bro. Like, you know, that '97 My Way album, fire. Outside of poetry, what's something else you guys get into? Keeda, some other hobbies outside of poetry or rapping or music?
I think, well, for me personally, just devotion to family. Being able to spend a lot of time with my family. I feel like whānau is a very integral part of a person. To be able to uphold that as one of your values, you know, is a big thing. I have 3 girls, and so yeah, as they quoted the late great Kobe Bryant as being, I'm a girl dad. You know?
Beautiful.
Nice.
Yeah, and so that's about it, bro. Just devotion to family, being able to see my whānau, talk to them whenever I can, make the effort, and yeah, that's about it.
Nice, brother. What about you, Mike?
Yeah, similar to Keeda. I love sport, but it's been a while. It's been a late winter. And, you know, I have a background in rugby league, so I've always got a soft spot for rugby league. I love the sport. And then being a dad, you know, I love spending
Nice.
time with girls. It's a real opportunity to kind of share your kids.
Yeah, nice. And final question, brothers. One piece of advice for young creatives who would like to work on their craft, and it could be like you mentioned before, Keeda, the pre-game jitters. So, what's one piece of advice that someone Rangatahi could use before they get on stage? What's one thing that you do that calms those nerves?
Well, usually what I'll do is, like, prior to a performance, jumping up on stage, you know, I'm just reciting my lyrics, not trying to overanalyze it, because then I know that somewhere I'll end up slipping up, but just reciting it enough to be like, okay, I know what I'm like. I know my verse. What's the music? Hits, tune everybody out. But that's all I'm doing is I'm just running myself through the pre-match, kind of thinking about what's coming up next. You know, structuring my lyrics in my head, placing them for specific songs, and then just waiting until the lights are on and the show starts, really, because even throughout all that preparation, the butterflies are still there, and it usually really kicks in once my name is called. And then once I'm up on stage, then, you know, I still have it for like this first couple seconds. And then once that microphone's in my hand and that music drops, boom, you know, I become a whole different person. And then I come off stage better than I was when I walked on.
Nice, bro. Nice. Brother Mike?
Yeah, I used to breathe, take the deep breaths, and but I actually got schooled recently on a way of making that a more meaningful process before I go on stage. Because often you feel you're alone, because now I'm going to go on stage, it's just me. And I had a Chinese healer tell me, "Oh, why do you breathe?" And I said, "Oh, because I like to think that I'm inhaling, you know, like my tupuna, so I'm not alone." And she was like, "You should." She was like, "And how does that work for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, it works. It kind of," she was like, "Make it more active. Make that more active." You know, and she's like, "You know, in Kapahaka, they reach out and they slap their chests, you know. Yeah, why not pull them in that way?" So before I perform, I do that. You know, I imagine bringing them in with me, and then I slap it into my chest, and then I just do that a few times, a bit like Wolf of Wall Street, but without the humming, you know. But there is times where I get to that point where I'm like, you know, I slap the thighs because I'm trying to awaken the stories in my legs as well, you know, or awaken the stories everywhere, and yeah, and then you know, there's times where I'm just fully just like, you know, before I go on stage to do poetry.
Nice, bro. Nice, bro. That's bro, probably some of the best answers to the quickfire we've had. But just before we wrap it up, I just want to say thank you to you guys, bro. Man, really enjoyed this kōrero. You guys dropped some gems. I've got like 7 pages of notes, bro. Just you guys are special, bro. You guys are talented. These guys are gifted, bro, and you guys are really good for our rangatahi to look up to. And I appreciate your time. You know, like me and Jordan always talk about time, bro. It's the most valuable currency we have. We spend it every day. We never get anything back. So I truly, from the bottom of our hearts, bro, we appreciate the time you guys given to us to inspire our next generation. So